Hi, everybody. For this episode of A Guy with a Scarf, I'm happy to have with me Gabriella Vacca, who, by the way, was at the university with me, even if she was a much more solid student. And not surprising, she had a much more solid exec career, I can say. Ciao, Gabriella.
Ciao, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's really nice to reconnect, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of things to say.
So, yeah, absolutely. By the way, where are you?
I'm in Philadelphia right now.
Okay, so that's part of the story. But if you can briefly tell me what happened after university until today, which is a long journey.
Absolutely. So at the university, we obviously was a technology type of, computer engineering. And so when we studied together, then I think we got lost a bit for a few years. But the reason is because I started in Italy and Europe, and then I moved to the States. And it was back when the States deployed their first GSM type of network. They needed expertise, and so they hired me. So, of course, we moved, my husband and I moved with a couple of luggages with the idea, one year we're going to be back. The reality is that after 30 years, I'm still here with 2 children and a career always in tech, in telecommunication. Cellular infrastructure and so forth. But also I took a nice detour into media because at that time, if you remember, telecom media were converging as an industry. Never understood why. Actually, I did. But the reality was that they converged because of synergies tied to technology and infrastructure. Plus trying to sell this concept of when you reach the customer or the house or the location, basically you need to have something more to say, which is typically media. And so now things are, I think, changing a bit, but we'll talk about that later if you want to. So I spent my life in Europe, Italy, Paris, then I moved to California, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and the last 5 years, up to July of last year, I was the CTO for Sky Italia, and I also had another role for Sky as enterprise technology. So wonderful to reconnect with some old friends and also to really reestablish a good relationship with my Italian soul, right? And my American soul. But today is I'm out of that of the CX type of role, CIO, CTOs, and I have I'm a technology leader, but I have basically a strategic portfolio of companies that I'm advising, which I'm planning to build a little bit more, and having a lot of fun with technology I like and people I like, and hopefully finding myself, time to do this type of conversation, which really forms the spirit, Carlo. So thank you for that.
You went through quite quickly, even if I understand it was a long journey. Can you mention other companies? Because that's quite qualifying.
Yeah. So in Italy, it was Olivetti, and then Omnitel, which is now Vodafone. Bouygues Telecom in Paris. When I was in California, was Cingular, and then became AT&T. Then I moved to media, was ESPN Mobile, where we created the first app. This was a long time ago. So of course, there were no iPhone at that time. But basically, we developed the first app on a mobile phone to personalize your sport experience. So you build a career on it. So you knew that at that time it was quite challenging.
Yeah.
Then I moved as a CIO for a startup. The name is Gogo. We put Wi-Fi on airplanes because before satellite became a thing. And then I moved to Comcast, which I stayed 10 years in Comcast. This is the reason I moved to Philly, and then Sky Europe and Sky Italia. So that's so the portfolio really is large companies, including startups. And also when I work with those larger companies like AT&T, I had a couple of years where basically I built new ventures from the ground up. The new mobile or the new, ESPN Mobile was a startup, Gogo was a startup. So I love the fact that you are immersed all in, and you either have to build from the ground up or you transform. That was really the opportunity I had working with my Italian colleagues at Sky Italia.
And then another question, just again to qualify what we're talking about. I think at the peak I had, 100, 200 people working in my teams. I know your number are much bigger, but just to give a scale, how many people you had under management in some of these places?
Yeah, I mean, the number of people really were thousands. Between Italy, UK, Germany, then we had a team in India. So it's a large scale operations with a lot of tech operations, budget. But what is interesting of that experience is when you manage such a large organization, the values and your imprint, leadership imprint, really become a thing, really become an intended program that you have to put in place to motivate and to blend the skills and the diversity also of this larger team that you manage. So I love that. I had the opportunity to do it because Sky was very receptive to this value and cultural changes and so forth. So it's been a wonderful experience.
But I think you mentioned in when we talked in the past that the big difference is it's impossible to know everybody.
Absolutely.
So you have to change the transmission engine if you
Absolutely. Want. So just to give a sense, it could be interesting for the people who were listening to this podcast. Once you manage, up to probably 100, 200, even 300 people, you can get to know them personally. And so it's easier for them to understand who you are, what is your motivation. Is easier to inspire your team with a why and not only with what and how, right? When you have 1,000 of people, you really have to put your attention into which values you want to transmit to the organization. And I'll give you the example of what we did in Italy, but the method is what I followed every time I got into a new venture. So I use remember technology, right? So I use the typical pyramid of operations, project delivery, and transformation. So the typical Gartner pyramid. But I enriched that pyramid with the foundational element. The foundational element were which value do we have as an organization? What is the organization we have, and how do we ensure that those principles are well connecting with all the organizations that we have, including our business stakeholders, right? So at the the lateral side of the pyramid, I had some internal KPIs, but I also had external KPIs, meaning what are some KPIs that help us blend the technology value with what the business is expecting, right? One example of the values that I put down is transparency. Now, everybody says,
easier said than done.
Boring, transparency. But the reality is that it's very difficult for a technology organization to be transparent, because the transparency is not, well, I'll give you access to all the report that I have. And so, no, that's too specific for the business to really understand what it means. So you need to find the right language that can resonate with your customers. The best analogy for transparency is you go to your doctor, right? You had your blood test and so on. You go to the doctor and the doctor said, okay, this is your level of glucose and and read this wonderful report. At the end of the day, day you want to know, I'm fine. Can I get better? Am I going to die? Right?
Exactly.
These are the type of question you have. That's what the business has with technology organization. So increasing transparency and not hiding behind a language that is highly technical and is not accessible becomes one of the value. And I mentioned this value specifically, Carlo, one last thing, because you need to stick to it. So for example, when I was actually in the States, we were dealing in a high priority and high sensitivity project. And some people in my team thought that, well, disclosing all that stuff was too much in that case. And so they were not so open about the situation that we were handling. And so we get into this meeting and I realized that something did not stick well, right? It was not clear. Some KPIs were not consistent. The business started to ask us some question. We had a couple of lawyers in the room. And so I said, okay, stop a second. Why we only communicated this part of that report and not this other one? And my team said, well, we decided not to share. I say, why? We decided at the beginning of this project to be transparent. So I asked the team, I said, I apologize, but the best thing for me to do right now is to interrupt this call and not waste your time, address this missing data point with my team, and we'll get back to you. And please forgive the fact that we didn't stick to our transparency value. So that's that, sorry.
No, vabbè, italiano, that we didn't, dunque hai detto that we didn't, non ti preoccupare.
Yeah.
We didn't, aspetta.
So, but that's staying compliant with the value that you want to transmit to the organization.
So one thing that it's clear you have either have to manage or you either bring it to yourself is change. Because one, if you're an exec at a certain level, etc., change is something you need to manage by design. It's not that change happens, right? But also, I know you have a lot of personal changes because of this variety of roles and situation, etc. So, what is your definition of change? And I always think that change is very often either underestimated or overestimated. Where is the right position of change?
The real change, there is a change. There are two types of change, right? Change in terms of things that happen to you. There is nothing you can do, and you just need to adapt. And that can be good or bad. But the real change that we're talking about is an intended change for either you or for the organization that you are working with. You know, in that case, a change is a bit like a jump in the unknown, meaning it's like crossing a forest. You do know that you want to cross that forest, but you are not trained into survival in the jungle and so forth. You can do three things probably. One is maintaining the long-term focus on your final destination, that you want to cross that jungle, or that you want to bring this type of change into the company because it needs to survive, or it needs to develop some new potentials, new product, and so forth, right? Second, you need to use your good judgment, okay? Meaning, if I go into the forest, I know that I will need a survival kit. I know that I need some bug spray because mosquitoes jump on me like crazy and I'm allergic. And also, you need to have people around you that have the skills that you don't have, okay? And that is a call for one, being humble, because you have never crossed the forest, but you're leading an organization. And so you have to embrace the team and make sure that the team understand why we're crossing this forest and so forth. And then you need to have clarity of communication, right? We estimate that this journey is going to be, 2 years. We know that these are the values. We're going to get there together. We are going to be inclusive. You know that we need this type of skills. And by the way, this type of people have the type of skills. And by the way, even though I don't have the full plan ahead of me completely defined, I commit to be transparent, to tell you what I know or I don't know. And we are committing to be there together, all alive. That means giving really, reaching the purpose that you defined. So it takes personal energy to really lead the change. And that's what I understood many times. You need to understand, how do you react to emergencies? I'll give you one silly example, Carlo, right? If I don't sleep, I'm not in, when I have those, some people can function with, just a couple of hours of sleep. I can't. I need to have 5, 6, 7, ideally 7, right? So during the time of COVID, when I was leading a major transformation under emergency because nobody was used to work from home. And I had 1,000 of people in Comcast. Comcast, just to give you a sense, is an organization that has 160,000 people. And we had the call centers, a good portion of the call center, plus 1,000 and 1,000 of people, including some executive who did not know what it meant to work remotely, right? Wow. Some didn't even have the computer. So in that case, situation of emergency, it was really good for me to know that, Gabriella, this is going to be a marathon. It's going to be three weeks at least of deep work, 24/7. You're not going to do everything by yourself because it's impossible. You're not going to function. So we are going to establish shift right away. We're going to be aware that some of those people have a family in bad situations, kids at home that they cannot go to school.
Yes.
And so we defined one of the first things that we did. We defined, shift for all of us. Who is going to take control if I am too tired or if I get sick? Because at that time there was a lot of unknown, right?
Oh, yeah.
So now this is just this is an example, but when you manage change under crisis or not, your personal skills as well as the discipline of what you have learned to do all converge into a new journey. And I love why I love transformation right now and defining the plan and talking with people in a way that becomes very easy to understand why that path is the right path for us.
And I mean, this brings me to, if you want, a topic that can I describe it from being paralyzed, being courageous, and being totally irrational. So how much courage, because clearly for these kind of things, you need some kind of courage because
Absolutely.
You don't know, you can fail, right? So maybe if I stay where I am, I don't fail.
Yes.
Not today, but.
So, I, first of all, part of me tends to define being, just courageous, but what's the definition of success? Well, hard to know because, at the end of the journey, you can say, oh yeah, that was successful, this work and so forth. But the reality is that in these journeys, you get to, you get to know yourself and the team and your purpose more than anything else. And you also learn that ambiguity is part of being ambiguity, meaning journey is ambiguous is part of the leadership trait that you develop. Knowing yourself is as important as knowing what is the DNA of the team that you are managing, right? Not specifically for those people, but as a team. What is it that makes, for the people who work with you in the inner circle, what is that motivates you? or that you really cannot stand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's become very important into the managed change and being courageous and so forth. But I think that my secret, which was not a secret, but I didn't realize that it was important. It was I get into these things that sometimes feel bigger than me. But I know that I'm going to do my best, and I know that eventually I'm going to make it, right? Is that a self-confidence? Maybe a little bit, but even when we started, let me go back to the university now, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I remember, I love humanities. I wanted to be a social worker, but I also liked the promise of technology. So I decided to get into something that was very specific. And from the day one, I realized it was a little bit of an odd piece of furniture because a lot of people around me, I didn't know you the first year of university, right? But they were the one who loved playing video games, and they loved to disassemble computers. I mean,
Nerds.
So I got into this group of nerds with a view that technology was going to change the life of people and make it better. That was my motivation, right? But the reason I stepped in with confidence is that I never felt alone. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to do the best I can. And I work really hard, as you know. But I'm also surrounded me with people that I knew had different skills. If I can just talk about the few exams we prepared together, Carla, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was the one who was hardworking, super organized, but you were the creative. You had a different perspective in seeing a problem or an opportunity and so forth. So I think that the reason we connected really well was because we had complementary skills.
Mm-hmm.
And if you walk into something that needs to be changed or a big challenge with the idea that, no, you're not going to be alone, you don't want to make it alone, but you can really work with people who are diverse in their own way, I think you're going to make it. And the journey is going to be wonderful, and it's going to be a life journey and not just a professional or a study type of journey.
No, absolutely. So finding people with different point of views, skills or whatever, but point of views is crucial. It's crucial. That I agree. I think I've somehow, I don't know, lately someone defined me as a sole contributor. So I love working with people, but somehow I focus too much on maybe, the content. So the content, the idea, I focus a lot on whatever, concepts, idea, the feature, the product. Even if I love working with others, but I think I'm missing something there.
Well, it's part of your journey, right?
Yeah, exactly. So one other thing you're also doing recently, it's a podcast that is called The Reality of Women at Work.
Yeah, yes.
And I've listened to a few episodes in the last 3 days in the car, to be honest. So tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, that is, let me just start with how this came up. Right?
Yeah.
So first of all, I've always been a great advocate for, it's too easy to say women and gender. The reality for me is that I'm passionate about helping people find their best potential, right? For me, the best experience that I had was one time I was in an airport and I met someone who was a man who worked with me, and they say, Gabriella, he hugged me and say, it's so nice to see you, Gabriella. I still wanted to thank you for those 2-3 years we worked together, because you really helped me find a new part of me that I didn't know I had. So it's feeling your best self, right? Now, it happened that I'm a woman, and a lot of the women that I work with maybe need a little bit of help to really become their best self. And so both when I was working, but also when I stopped working, full time, a friend, someone who really knew but not very well, asked me, "Hey, I'm creating this network which is called Eve Careers, is specifically for women. Can you help us build a message for women, but not only, right? Because the principle of leadership can be." And so, and just like that, I said yes. And then I reminded myself, Gabriella, the definition of luck is readiness plus opportunity, but also in order to close the opportunity, you need to be able to say yes. So of course I was, you are a podcaster and you are in this content space. I mean, for me at the beginning it was a little intimidating to get into, a video and interviewing people. But I said, you know what? No, we're not professional. But who cares? We have a lot of things to say. We believe in the mission. We can help some journeys to make sense of themselves. And so I started to basically contact women I knew. And the reality of women at work became, a series of 9 episodes for the season. Then we'll decide if we're going to do it again. But we talked about the loneliness or the solitude, actually, of leadership. Because at the end of the day, leader needs to be committed to their company and also to the people. But sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, or the power of shaking it off, or belonging versus becoming. So a bunch of conversations that hopefully people resonate.
And so the question, it's a stupid punt, but what is the reality of women at work today?
Well, the reality of women at work is changing. Is a mix of the culture of the company and their ability to really integrate with people who have skills and diverse needs in some cases, but it's also a function of how much women are able to stand by themselves and create a supporting organization that helps them really strive and succeed. And I'm glad that is, it's changing. I found wonderful men and wonderful women who really, really support each other. That's very different than 30 years ago when I started in Italy and then I moved to the States, where, again, it was hard to be an odd piece of furniture, to have an accent, to be really good at what you were doing, but how I was leading teams and business was different. The language, they didn't understand. Why you're putting so much focus on why? Just tell us what to do. No, because if you understand why, you are going to become more and more independent. And I want to be a chip in your brain. I don't want to be a line in your to-do list.
And I remember the first time we met again, well, maybe one of the first time we met again, either at Sky or maybe at the IBC in Amsterdam some years ago. You used the sentence that still is with me: shrug it off. Take it off, shrug it off. What does it mean? Because I have this ambivalence. On one end, I can understand, you can say, okay, you have to work with yourself, but also saying that it has nothing to do with the environment, because we cannot change. I'm talking about the company environment, the company culture. I have a bit of ambivalence. I think people have to work on themselves. 100%, but maybe companies have to change a bit.
Totally.
Sorry.
Totally. So this is why I said, when you ask, the reality of women at work is a function of the culture of the company, plus you and yourself, plus, right? But you also let's not talk about the culture of the companies. I had an episode with my colleague at Sky where I talk about the culture. So and how she and I, but also other people, work together to architect change in terms of yes at Sky.
Yeah.
But I wanna index now on what people can do to help this change, right? So it's important that again, I'm talking people, not just women, but they take a responsibility for what they can do. Right? When I'm mentoring people and they tell me, well, this works, this doesn't work, and so forth, I'm saying, what are you doing to change that that thing that you don't like? Well, there's nothing I can do. No. First of all, you can bring it up. You can talk in a way that is acceptable to others, not angry. Become someone who can help change, right? Instead of sitting on your chair and just waiting for something. I mean, it's like in your personal life, right? You want to assess the situation and you want to lean into changing something and make it better for the family, for the community, or whatever it is. Now, in order to do that, it's very important that the people, and a lot of women, me too. I mean, I had the same type of situation. I was overthinking things too much. I mean, something happens, and after a week or a month, I can still think about it. While I know that some of my mentors that at that time were maybe men, they would say, "Why are you still thinking about it? Shake it off, right?" It's important to shake things off. Not, and in some cases, it's a mental exercise.
Yeah.
You keep on thinking about it and you say, you stop. I allow you to think about it twice. You have overanalyzed it. It is what it is. Or you made a mistake or you did something really stupid. You know what? Did I die? No. Was it something stupid? Did. Okay, you're not going to do it again. Now let's move on. Right? And then mentally, you don't want to go back to that negative space.
Yeah, I think it's a good lesson. It's very difficult when you're built that way. So you need really to change.
But Carlo, a lot of people I know and a lot of women are built this way. I mean, I remember, and of course your brain latches on to the negative more than the positive. And that's why when I do my reflection for the day or the week or whatever it is, and I walk and I think and say, okay, the mental discipline is 1, bad things that happen and 3, good things. Because we need to condition our brain to look at the half full glass and not always the glass as half empty.
And so just a personal note on my side, I was lucky enough to be in my, first 3-4 months in sport tech, managing a World Cup event in Austria. And I did a mistake live on TV, which again, I sent an old ranking instead of the new one because I did a small mistake, human mistake. And a lady that was leading the sponsorship side of Olivetti, by the way, told me, Carlo, you're very good. You made a mistake. Tomorrow is another day. Everything will be fine. You know it was very nice. She was a tough, really tough lady, but really tough. And I was surprised because she was so, nice to me. But I still remember to this day. And I think if you work in live sport, or you're making mistakes, or so many, and you will fix mistakes live, and you will be transparent and say, oh, I did something wrong to everybody. So maybe because I always work in live environment, there are certain things that you do not because you're a good human being, because it's the only way to do it. Transparency. If I'm in a team, in a live environment, like other example in sport can be, imagine in a sailboat during a big competition, and you don't say you made a mistake, the boat collapses and everybody's down.
Absolutely. That was Carlo, that was actually one of the key learning when I moved to Sky, and I was managing, part of the organization is media, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, in the issues, like in telecom, from that perspective, when the issues happen, you have already the damage is already created, right? It's real time. You are on screen. And so we changed the type of operational KPIs. So of course we manage the near misses. How many times did we get so close? Or how many times do we need to, what is the capacity of this specific network equipment? How many times did we flip to the contingents, equipment because the load was too high or so forth. I mean, it's wonderful and it's good. I mean, the error is made. Now, what can you do? Well, one, you're not going to repeat it again because you feel so bad about that mistake, but also move on.
No, and especially, I think one thing that you also learn is how you relate to other people. Are you in this heavy stress real-time situation? You really have to build the muscle memory to operate, which is it's a fascinating. If you want, it's a niche because live real time, it's a niche.
Yes.
But I think you're lucky if you're there because there are certain things that in other environment are more like you're a good professional. You're good. It's not like you need it 100%, but in this case you do. So you look smarter than you are, I think, in the end. So there's one topic that I want to touch, but it may be boring, so maybe we don't. I'm from Torino. You're close from Torino, but we were educated that if there is a grade of 100, that's okay. Everything less, you do. This is my family culture, at least. Even if my parents were super sweet and they still are. But imposter syndrome is very often connected with women, but I think, or with people from Torino, I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
How did you manage that? How did you manage that, being a woman from the Torino area?
Yeah, there are 2-3 things that are really the perfect storm for our type of education, right? One is, yes, you are measured against the best of the best. Right? And that's heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah.
But in order to get there, you need to jump in. You need to learn new things. The growth is not linear. And this becomes the dark side of the coin, which is don't take too much risk. Right? In our culture, the way I was educated is, you do the best you can, and if you do the best you can, you're going to reach to this specific objective. But I'm going to say it in Italian and translate it. That means don't take too much risk, because risk is personal. If you fail, that's a personal failure. Now, that was held me back when I was much younger. But when I moved to the States, I had to redefine this concept of being against the risk as, movement is life. Movement is learning. So forget about being committed and seeing only the final destination, what is in your head is success. Appreciate the journey, because through the journey you are learning, you're becoming stronger. You find some people who are worth connecting, not just from a professional, but also personal. And that's how you're learning life, and life becomes richer. So yes, do take risk, hopefully calculated risk, right? Not something that put financially on your knees, for example, because you have responsibility for your family and yourself and so forth. And then be happy with the 90%. Be happy with the 92%. And you taught me something that was important. you may not even know when you were at university. Because through your approach that was a creative, I mean, of course you need to study and looking at things from different perspective, you also help me understand the value of how much energy do I need to put into something to get to a good 80 to 100%. While for me was always, I put 100%, but then you put 100% of the energy to get to that specific destination, automatically you leave tons of opportunity uncovered, right? And I felt that you were better than me in managing what was not only your objective, that in that case was we needed to pass the exam and with hopefully a decent grade, but you also had probably a life that was more interesting than mine at that time, right? Because you manage your energy differently. So thank you for that. You help me remember and go back in time.
No, I think that's why to these days, even if when I say it, someone say, come on, you're an expert. I'm a generalist, but so not superficial generalist. I go, I think 20, 30% down in every topic where I think I'm a generalist. I don't like to be super, because otherwise everybody can do it. So to be original, you need to understand a bit more, but I'm not fully, so I always know that I need experts.
Yes.
If I have to do stuff, because I'm not, but I can talk, if you have these 20, 30%, you can talk to a lot of experts.
Totally.
That normally sometimes, not always respect you, because you have more than the average, management, people in management, etc. You can create more empathy. Sometimes you sit down with them and you study. They love that someone is coming to whatever security or whatever topic, that you have people that want to understand more.
Yes.
That's what I had a lot of fun doing that, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I define the same for me. I define myself, I call it as a swimmer and not a diver. I mean, I can dive if I need it, but when I dive, I lose perspective on the swimming, right?
Yeah,
and my job, more and more, actually the job of people in a senior position, more and more, is making sense of things for all the leaders in not only of the company, and help make the right decision, which is sometimes making the right technology decision may not be best for the company, because maybe that new platform comes with a lot of risk or cost, whatever it is. So the decision needs to be done at executive level with someone who can make sense of things.
No, see, it's also having a certain lateral view when everybody's just looking at the problem without,
Yes.
Va bene, so sorry, we're talking too good about ourselves. That's not a nice. Va bene. So, what do you think is the thing that is taking your attention these days? The focus for you, where is your curiosity these days?
So right now, because I have more time, I'm learning like crazy. Not only things in tech, but I listen actively to podcasts or reading books and so forth. And I have a notebook where I put all the different elements, all the things that I like to understand a little bit better. And with AI, of course, I have my, project, which is called Learning, with all the different I mean, because that I'm very structured. So I'm learning about, gene editing, synthetic biology, the latest on AI, quantum. I'm in a company called Qtonic Quantum that is doing post-quantum cryptography, readiness, and intelligence, plus a few others with startups and so forth. So I'm the reason I had decided to leave this CX type of career was because I wanted to see more. and learn more. And I wanted also to basically have time to spend on the peak of that pyramid that I described, right? Which is basically transformation and innovation. So that's where I'm spending my time, in addition to having my give back portfolio. Can be mentoring, can be coaching, can be advising some small companies that still don't have money to pay me, which is fine. But also my other active portfolio, which is basically strategic advisory. So more time for myself, more time for friends and family, quality time. And I have the opportunity to finally really notice things around me that I've been just way too rushed to, because of my job and my family, to fully appreciate. So
that sounds like a good plan. Brava.
It is a good plan. It is a good plan.
Va
and
bene.
we had to do this together, so it's amazing.
Grazie Gabriella, grazie
Ti
mille.
ringrazio. Ciao, and bye to everybody. Ciao.